Well, thanks everyone for being here today. My name is Emily Hilliard, and I'm the Program Director for Folk and Traditional Arts at Mid-Atlantic Arts. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm a white woman with dark brown hair and a pink shirt. And I'm speaking to you today from Berea, Kentucky. My colleague, Joel Chapman, is also here today, and he'll be monitoring the Q&A, helping with any technical difficulties and answering any questions. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Emily. Hi, this is Joel Chapman speaking. I'm the Program Associate for Folk and Traditional Arts. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a white man with blonde hair wearing a black sweatshirt with a blue collar popping out of the top.
Great. And so you know you're in the right place. This is the webinar for Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects Grants. So I'm going to stop our screen so you can focus on the slides, and then we'll turn our video back on when we move to questions. Hold on one second here. Okay. So before we get started, I want to share a little bit about Mid-Atlantic Arts for those of you who may not be familiar. Mid-Atlantic Arts is one of 6 regional arts organizations in the United States. There we go. And our member states and territories include Delaware, the District of Columbia, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Virginia, and West Virginia. And to give you some idea of who we are within the National Arts Service Organization ecosystem, for local arts agencies, state arts agencies, and regional arts organizations like ourselves, and the National Endowment for the Arts. And Mid-Atlantic Arts distinguishes itself through its work in international cultural exchange, performing arts touring, its knowledge and presence in the jazz field, and its support of folk and traditional arts. So let's get started. We have a Q&A period at the end of today's webinar, so we'll answer all your questions then. If you'd like to ask a question in the meantime, you can simply type it into the Q&A box, accessed through the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. And we'll work on the list and try to answer all the questions at the end. And if there's anything that can be answered in the meantime, we'll try to answer that in writing before we get to the Q&A. Guidelines are available at midatlanticarts.org on PDF format, as well as an accessible Word file. To request an accommodation at any point during your application process, you can contact at 667-401-488 or chapman@midatlantic.org, sorry, midatlanticarts.org. Accommodations must be requested no later than 2 weeks prior to the application deadline. So what are the folk and traditional arts? Mid-Atlantic Folk and Traditional Arts Community Projects grants fund projects designed to support the vitality of traditional arts and cultural communities in the Mid-Atlantic region. And today, oh, sorry, I advanced. There we go. And today we'll cover all aspects of the new grant program, an overview of the folk and traditional arts, grant information and eligibility, grant award limitations, review criteria, application and review process, and project timeline. So here's a picture of a project that was funded through one of our grants. It depicts a woman with beige skin dancing in a well-lit room and twirling a colorful red and blue pattern dress that she is wearing. There are 5 others also wearing similar style dresses of different colors, watching the dancer in the center. So what are the folk and traditional arts? This grant program specifically funds folk and traditional arts projects. So to take a step back, we think of the folk and traditional arts as art and creative practices that are based in and reflective of the knowledge, practices, and creativity of cultural communities. As the NEA explains, those community members may share a common ethnic heritage, cultural mores, language, religion, occupation, or geographic region. These vital and constantly reinvigorated artistic traditions are shaped by values and standards of excellence that are passed from generation to generation, most often within family and community through demonstration, conversation, and practice. In traditional arts include craft, material culture, foodways, dance, music, storytelling, and more. This photo is another scene from one of our funded projects, and this picture depicts a woman with deep brown skin, long thick hair tied up on the top of her head, wearing a multicolor and patterned dress and large pink fabric earrings. She's dancing and has an energetic and joyful expression on her face. There are other people dancing in the background. One is holding a percussion instrument made of a gourd and a net of beads. So more about the Folk and Traditional Arts Community Project grants. For this particular program, nonprofit organizations, units of government, or federally recognized tribal governments in the Mid-Atlantic region can apply for funding in amounts of $1,000 to $7,000 to engage folk and traditional artists, practitioners, or culture bearers in community-based projects. Eligible projects include, but are not limited to, performances, public art collaborations, workshops, trainings, exhibitions, fieldwork, and artistic collaboration. This picture depicts a large room with tall ceilings full of people dancing and holding tambourines. In the center are two people wearing large paper mache heads on their shoulders, known as cabezudos, that are characteristic of the people they are standing next to. So more about the grants. Projects must include some publicly accessible component. This could be a performance, event, exhibit, video, podcast, Q&A session, public interest meeting, archival collection, website, or report. We encourage projects that cross sectors or territory borders or connect organizations, artists, or practitioners within one state or territory. And in alignment with Mid-Atlantic's strategic vision to promote equity, diversity, inclusion, and access, applications for projects that support or engage underserved or underrepresented artists, practitioners, traditions, or constituents are strongly encouraged. So who is eligible? Your organization must be located in Delaware, DC, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, Virginia, West Virginia, and Native nations that share this geography. And your organization must be a 501c3 nonprofit, a unit of state or local government, or a federally recognized Indian tribal government. Units of state or local government must provide a document on official letterhead to confirm their status as a government entity. And unfortunately, fiscal sponsorship is not permitted for this program. Your organization must also be in good standing with Mid-Atlantic Arts with no overdue or outstanding required reports and or grant documents. In this slide's picture are four men with brown skin wearing red blazers and dark pants who are singing and dancing, singing into a microphone on stands. They're in various positions as they groove to the music, and they are performing on a large covered outdoor stage. In the background is the rest of their band, including an electric bass player, electric guitar player, a keyboardist, and a drummer. Their band is wearing darker suits. So are there any grant award limitations? We only fund the specific direct costs of the project, and no grant funds may be used for indirect costs. Direct costs are specified in the budget section of the application and may include artist fees, program staff salary, marketing and promotional expenses, supplies and equipment rental or purchases of no more than $1,000 per item, printing and publishing costs, artist or cultural work or travel, lodging expenses, and expenses related to public health measures for in-person engagements. An additional note on supply and equipment purchases or rental: any equipment purchases cannot be used for any non-project activity during the active grant period. After the grant period, supplies and equipment may be retained, provided they will be used for activities similar to those of the funded project. It's also important to know that grants must be matched on a one-to-one basis. The match may not include federal funds, and the grant and the required match may not be used to match other federal funds, whether they are received directly from a federal agency or indirectly, such as through a state agency or other entity. In this slide, picture are two musicians playing in a blue tinged light in the back of a brewery. On the left, a man in a blue shirt plays a guitar while sitting on a stool and singing into the mic. To his right, a woman singing passionately into a microphone and wearing a scarlet top. In the background, you can see a dartboard, a beer keg, and coiled drum cables. So a little bit more about how these applications will be reviewed. Project viability is weighted at 40% and includes, as applicable, the value and appropriateness of the project to the organization's mission, traditional arts discipline, artists or practitioners, audience, community, and or constituency. The ability to carry out the project based on factors like the appropriateness of the budget, the quality and clarity of the project activities and goals, the resources involved, and the qualifications of the project's personnel. The plan for the project's publicly accessible component, including documentation and dissemination of the project results, the collaborative quality of the project in its design across sectors or territory borders, or connect organizations, artists, or practitioners within one state or territory. Evidence of direct appropriate compensation to artists, practitioners, and or cultural workers. Appropriateness, how you propose to evaluate the success of your project. Artistic value and community involvement is weighted at 30% and includes, as applicable, the quality of the artists or practitioners, organizations, works of art, practices, and or services that the project will involve, and their relevance to the audience or communities being served. Artistic value can be defined by the community of practice, audiences, outside recognition, or some combination of the three. This also includes extent to which the community is engaged in project planning, design, execution, and evaluation. And note that this aspect, the community engagement, is a new addition this year based on panelist feedback and our own goals as an organization. We highly recommend that you involve the community you're working with at every step of the process. So this project would be embedded in community. It serves and aligns with that community's needs, desires, and aesthetics. And the last criteria, weighted at 30%, includes, as applicable, is the promotion of equity, diversity, access, and inclusion, and includes, as applicable, the potential to serve and or reach individuals whose opportunities to experience the arts are limited by geography, race, and ethnicity, economics, or disability, as applicable. Considerations for project accessibility accommodations, engagement with and support of underrepresented or underserved artists, practitioners, traditions, or constituents, and or that the project encourages diversity and promotes inclusion. And you can find all of these criteria broken down by bullet point in the project guidelines on our website. A diverse group of folk and traditional arts specialists, including folklorists, cultural workers, artists, practitioners, and culture bearers, will serve as panelists and provide program feedback informed by their role in application review. And I will share more about what happens to your application after you submit it in a subsequent slide. So as for the timeline, applications opened April 17th of this year and are due June 6th. Applicants will be notified of grant award approval by August 31st, 2023. And project activities will take place from September 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. So how to apply? The required application materials are applicant information, project details and narrative, project personnel and organizational bios, project budget, and work samples. Work samples are a critical part of your application and are considered carefully during the panelist review. Samples should demonstrate quality of artistic content and our technical ability as applicable, and they should be recent, concise, of high quality, and as relevant to the project as possible. Panelist review of work samples is limited to no more than 20 minutes per application, so be selective in what you choose to submit. We highly recommend limiting your selections to 3 to 4 substantive work samples relevant to the project. You can submit audio, video, image, or document work samples. Video and audio must be submitted via URL, and image and document can be uploaded directly. Audio and video samples, please submit no more than 3 per application, and individual samples should not exceed 5 minutes. If a clip that exceeds 5 minutes, make sure to indicate which 5-minute portion reviewers should view. Image work samples, please submit no more than 10 images per application. And for document work samples, please submit no more than 4 documents per application. And this is all in the project guidelines as well. And as for the picture in the slide, depicted is a quartet of musicians wearing matching formal burgundy clothes with gold accents and large mariachi sombreros for hats. They're also playing mariachi instruments such as a large body guitar and fiddle. In the foreground, the singer holds her hand to her diaphragm as the band plays behind her. More about how to apply, you can access our online application at midatlanticarts.startsimple.com and view a sample application on our website. Remember that applications are due June 6, 2023. Some application tips in the meantime. So start with the program guidelines and make sure to read all application instructions thoroughly. Put your best foot forward. Work samples should demonstrate the quality of artistic content and or technical ability, and they should be recent, concise, of high quality, and relevant to the project. Make sure you don't wait until the last minute, as we can assist with any technical difficulties. But because the deadline is 11:59 on June 6th, we may not be there at 11 p.m. To address any last minute technical difficulties you are having. So I would highly recommend submitting well in advance of the deadline. And make sure to review the review criteria in the program guidelines and ask yourself, does your application strongly meet review criteria? And address those weaknesses, if any. And that last point cannot be stressed enough. The review criteria listed in the program guidelines are used by panelists to evaluate your application. So the better your application meets those review criteria, which we went over and are in the guidelines, the more likely your application will be funded. So what happens after you submit an application? Just a brief overview of what happens when you apply. So first, Mid-Atlantic Arts staff review your application for eligibility concerns. Then the applications, including work samples, are sent to panelists who evaluate applications against those program criteria we mentioned. Then when panelists meet, they may grant recommendations, and we send those to our board of directors for approval. Notifications go out to applicants 2 months following the deadline. I really appreciate everyone being here today. Now we have some time to take your questions. You can type questions in the Q&A feature of Zoom. And while folks are typing their questions, I also want to encourage you to sign up for the Mid-Atlantic Arts newsletter on midatlanticarts.org if you aren't receiving emails from us already. And when you sign up for the newsletter online, you will receive targeted emails for grant opportunities and reminders about upcoming program deadlines. We don't automatically add you to our mailing list for signing up for this webinar, so please just make sure to sign up if you would like to receive updates. When you visit the website, please just click in the upper right-hand corner where it says sign up for the newsletter. All right, we can now move to questions.
Hi, there are a couple of questions already coming in, so we'll get to those in a second. Thank you, Emily, for sharing all that. Appreciate it. Let me get to this first one here from Natasha. Sorry, Natasha, I said I already answered it, but I haven't, but we're going to answer it right now, hopefully. So this first one, I'll just read it out loud. Hi, I'm Natasha Sagardia, Foundation Director of Foundation Luciérnagas, sorry about that, a nonprofit organization from Puerto Rico. Our nonprofit is considered a regional entity under the United States. We are an incorporated nonprofit charitable organization under the domestic law of Puerto Rico. Instead of a federal 501c3, we are a 164 PR. We also count with tax exemption under the domestic law 1101-01. I can share the certifications of incorporation and tax exemption if you might need it. As Puerto Rico is a free but associated with the state of the associated state of the United States, we have some differences in our legal system and at the same time many similarities. I wanted to know if we were still eligible to apply. Thank you for your time and orientation. What do you think, Emily?
Yeah, it sounds like you probably would be eligible, but if you send us your email, we should be able to confirm that for you.